Hello.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome to For Better.
Welcome to For Better. We're Lauren and Joy Hershey from Dubuque, Iowa. So glad to be with you tonight. And we're going to talk about marriage and relationships and going forward and getting better. Getting better at our marriages.
Yes.
Hey, I just noticed something. Hi, Amanda.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us tonight. Hey, I just realized who just joined in. Hi, Marla.
Hi, Marla.
Excuse me just a moment. Got this thing popping up on the camera. Hey, I just realized what day it was tomorrow. Tomorrow is National Praline Day.
Oh.
Yeah, isn't that sweet? It's going to be a sweet day tomorrow.
It does sound good.
And Belgian, I feel like Forrest Gump. We got Belgian pralines, American pralines, French pralines, all kinds of, they're all different. They're all different. Some of them have hard chocolate around the outside of them. Just reminded me about Gremlins, with the caramel and the pecans and everything. So.
Well, any kind of pecan is a good pecan.
Oh, but that's the truth, isn't
I do
it?
love pecans. Nuts of all types I like. So.
It reminded me of going through the airport, getting the cinnamon nuts or whatever candied nuts there.
Yeah, those are good. So hi,
Yeah,
Patty.
hi, Patty.
Hi, Nicena. Thanks
So
for joining us tonight.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
For caring enough about your relationships to spend some time investing by listening tonight. And our marriages need to be invested in.
Yeah.
And yes, it takes some time, it takes some effort, but so worth it. The payoff is so great.
So great.
So thanks for tuning in tonight, and thanks for caring about your marriage enough to tune in and listen tonight.
Yeah, and if you would do us a favor, we'd really appreciate it. If you'll, for every time you chat things up and share and comment and those things like that, it helps us get the word out to other people. And people are joining us from all over the place. And it's so encouraging, and they're being encouraged as well as you guys. So thanks for joining us. And here's what we want to get into tonight is that, and it's been on my heart for quite a while, to talk about communication because a marriage relationship goes through certain seasons, whether it's from that first meeting where two people would get married and come together and two people become one flesh, and not two halves becoming a whole, but two whole people coming together and being one flesh. From that time to the next seasons when, it's like, have you ever seen one of those movies where the captain, they set sail? Maybe it's a submarine movie. I know I've seen one like that, where they get away from shore and the captain brings out sealed orders, okay, and opens it up. Now they figure out what they're doing. A marriage is like that. You get started and along the way, things happen, and you have redirection.
You figure out what you're going to navigate together in your life.
Yeah, and sometimes
maybe a surprise. It may be something unexpected, and probably there are going to be unexpected things that you have to navigate through, whether it's something big or something small. But there are things that you're going to have to navigate through together.
That's right. It'll be the gradual progression where you two people becoming one, figuring out how to live together, and then in the midst of that, is there one figuring out how to be an individual while they're a couple, and then as the kids grow up and move out, then empty nest, figure out how we're going to live now, all the way to retirement. How are we going to have a retirement? How are we going to live together? And all the way along there are conversations that have to take place as the two people figure out how they're going to live, how decisions are going to be made.
Yes.
Even just little things like when you move into a house, who's going to use what shelves in the closet? And are shoes going to be left at the front door?
Right.
All those sorts of things. And so let me read a couple of statements to you. That good relationship is two-way communication. When one side of the conversation is lost, the relationship is dying. To the degree that equal responsiveness is lost, to that extent, the relationship ceases to exist.
Yeah. So sometimes in
yeah.
a marriage, you get to a point that if you don't work through it in a healthy way,
Yeah,
one of the people in the relationship begins to shut down.
yeah,
They just stop communicating, they stop caring.
yeah,
And that's a really terrible place to be in. So if you find yourself in a place where one of you has stopped communicating, kind of become distant, stopped caring, that's a red flag. Woohoo, red flag. Time to make a change, time to have some good, godly, healthy communication. So if
Yeah.
you're the one who has shut down and stopped communicating, kind of stopped caring about your relationship, then I want to encourage you to don't give up.
yeah. And that shutting down can look a couple different ways. Someone might be unwilling to talk anymore,
Yeah.
but also someone might be unwilling to listen
Right.
anymore. And there's a key that Joy and I have learned over the years that is so powerful for the two of us, and we call it by several different things. I like to say it's everybody being responsible for their own stuff. And in the midst of communicating about things, because communication is the key
Right.
to building a marriage relationship. You have to learn to communicate, and communication broke down. We see it back in Genesis chapter 3 with the very first sin that Adam committed,
Yeah.
where God came back into the Garden of Eden and asked, "Where are you, Adam?" And he says, "I'm hiding. I was afraid because I was naked." And God said, "Who are you naked?" And it goes on to talk about that. And God says, "Who told you? Have you eaten of the fruit that I told you not to eat?" And Adam says, "The woman which you gave me." And so she gave me the fruit and I did eat. And so blaming starts.
Yes.
And all that sort of hiding and not taking responsibility for their own stuff. And so it's essential, as the two of you talk through things, that you be responsible for your own stuff. And so
It's so easy
Yeah.
to blame, and that's human flesh nature, is to blame somebody else for your pain or blame somebody else for your attitude, because our flesh wants to not take responsibility. Our flesh wants to never look bad, never,
yeah,
take responsibility for ourselves. But as Christians, we don't want to live that way. We know that that came in with sin, and we've been delivered from the power of sin in our life. And so we want to get on God's side and begin to communicate in godly ways and healthy ways that will build one another up. And instead of finger pointing and blaming other people for our attitudes, we want to own our own things. So you have a list of things that we need to own in good communication.
And even if the other person, well, let's just go through some of these. We need to recognize that these are ours. In other words, to say, these belong to me. I'm responsible for them. Okay? And our feelings belong to us. We're responsible for them. And here's what we're saying to you, that the other person may have said something. They may have done something. And now you feel a certain way. Well, they are not responsible for your feelings. Those feelings are yours. My feelings are mine. I have to take responsibility for them. I'm not excusing the other person for their responsibility and what they did was wrong or right. Regardless, how I feel, that's mine to take care of, and I have to take responsibility for them. My attitudes and my beliefs, those are mine. Okay, those are mine. I can't lay that on anybody else.
My goodness, we want to blame it on somebody else.
Oh, man.
For real, we do. We think, well, if you wouldn't have blah, 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 then I wouldn't be mad, or I wouldn't have such a growly attitude, or I wouldn't. And we want so bad to blame somebody else, but in reality, it's our choice.
It's our choice.
What our attitude's going to be, how we're going to respond to the things that are said or done.
If they're responsible for my attitude, then I don't have control of that anymore.
Right.
Then they're in charge of that. and they're in control of that part of my life, and that's not the way God made it. My behaviors, okay, my character issues, known and unknown character issues, okay, those are ours. Okay, thinking about those secret orders, you know, there's
from the ship that you talked about earlier.
Yeah, how the captain, the journey has been undertaken, and all of a sudden something surfaces that nobody expected. Well, in a marriage relationship, a lot of times, all of a sudden something surfaces in one of our characters that I didn't know that was there, or we did know, or they didn't know. Either way, my behaviors and my character issues, those are mine. I can't lay that on Joy, say, well, if you weren't that way, I wouldn't be this way. Well, it's not about how she is, it's about how I am. My choices, our choices are ours. See, this is so important when you're communicating with one another and you're working out this plan for your life, how you're going to educate the kids, how you're going to do retirement, how you're going to make choices, how you're going to do holidays. You know, those choices are yours, and you're responsible for them. Your values, individually, your limits, how far you let somebody go in your life, and how much you give. All those things, those are yours. You could say it with me. These are mine.
These are mine.
I am responsible for them.
I'm responsible for them.
And I'm saying that because when you get in a conversation about these things, it's so, so tempting to lay it off on the other person.
So tempting to say, you made me mad.
Oh my.
When in reality, that's my choice to respond that way. And likely it's something from the way I was raised, or, I mean, maybe they did do something really hurtful, but still those feelings are yours, and you choose what you're going to do with those feelings. Am I going to react out of those? Am I going to hurt back? Or am I going to be responsible for that and do what I choose to do with that according to my values? If my values are not to hurt back, then what the other person has done is not controlling me, has not made me. You didn't make me slam the door.
There you go.
You know, I chose to respond in my anger by slamming the door. But you have to own your own stuff.
And we're talking about these things because these are things you have to manage yourself in the midst of the conversation as you're working through these things all your married life.
Yes.
Yeah.
You manage yourself.
Yourself.
Wow.
Yeah. You become aware of who you are and what you are and how you are, and you manage yourself. And your limits, your talents are yours. Your thoughts are your thoughts, and you own them. And you're responsible for them. Your desires, those are yours. And your love, it's yours. You know,
it's yours to give.
It's yours to give. And in all these things, learning to take ownership of these things rather than blaming somebody else, and learning how to manage these things in the midst of a conversation with other people is key.
Yes.
See, Adam did not do that in the Garden of Eden.
Right.
He was afraid. He was feeling guilty. He was hiding. But instead of being honest and owning his own emotions and managing those, dealing with those, being responsible, he wanted to hurl it on somebody else.
Yeah.
And so by owning our own stuff, learning how to communicate then in the midst of a conversation with those, it's absolutely key. You become a quality individual, and you can build a quality relationship.
That would make a great t-shirt, Diane. Manage yourself.
Yeah.
Yes, it would. It's a good reminder for everybody. Like when we're in the midst of a conversation, and when you have those conversations that are really, there's a tendency that it could get really volatile. It could be really hurtful. It could definitely go the wrong direction if we're not careful. Then you really have to think about, what am I about to say? And think about, is this really going to be helpful for the conversation, or am I just lashing out?
Yeah.
Just lashing out on my feelings and not in control, and letting my feelings control my words instead of my mind control my words, or even, my spirit control my words. Where are these words coming from? Am I just wanting to lash out and hurt that other person and somehow punish them for how I'm feeling, when the feelings that I have really, they may not have caused those feelings? That might not be the right place to lay that blame. It could be that you're reacting to something that is a result of how you were raised, or an incident that happened to you.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
You have a little PTSD maybe from a situation that happened in your past.
Yeah.
And I don't mean to make light of the real PTSD, but in small ways, sometimes we all have reactions to things that happened to us in our past.
Traumatic situations.
Right. They may not be they cause us to react to things in ways that are not reasonable because of what has happened to us in the past. It wasn't really what the person did to us today, or what the person said to us today that's setting off this feeling inside of me. It's something that happened to me a long time ago that is bringing up a feeling that's unreasonable based on what they did. So it's just important that we manage ourselves and be able to think about really sort of self-analyze.
Yeah, be aware, be self-aware.
Self-analyze.
Yeah.
To be able to have a good conversation, because you want to have conversations where you remain on the same team.
Yeah.
And you can go forward together, and you have the ability to communicate and have hope for the future, and come to agreements about, well, this is how we are going to handle this situation in the future, or this situation that's happened to us.
Hey, look, folks, we're real people. All of us are real people, and none of us are perfect. And we've all got emotional stuff. We've got psychological stuff. We've got things in our past, things in us today that we're surfacing. I mean, even in our culture today, with the conflicts, the racial things that are going on, and to see the police and the protesters, nose to nose. I mean, thank God for police that are good, that can manage their own emotions.
Right.
And people who can keep themselves from being swept up in the emotion of the moment. And we have to learn to communicate and build together and stay together and help each other as we come through this.
Yeah.
And in the midst of all this also, it's not just a husband and wife in the midst of these conversations. There's someone, and I'm not talking about God, there's someone wants to get in there in a negative way and egg things on.
Yeah.
And I know the Lord was stirring your heart about something like that. Would you talk to the people a little bit?
Yeah, so the Lord was stirring my heart all day today with that scripture that describes Satan as the accuser of the brethren. So we want to really think about whose side we're on in a conversation, and really who are we listening to?
Amen.
Because when things happen in our relationships, and they happen. I mean, we're living with a person, not a robot, so things are going to happen.
That's
Good
right.
days, bad days, things happen.
That's right.
But then we need to realize that Satan is out to destroy relationships and destroy marriages, destroy families, and he's the accuser of the brethren. And so he's going to come to you and try to plant seeds of doubt in your mind, doubts about the person that you're in a relationship with. Those thoughts that come to you that are like, well, he's just not, he doesn't love me anymore. He's not thinking about me. He's totally selfish. He's just out for his own. He just wants his own way. Or she, either way. The enemy, that's the enemy. All those negative, accusatory thoughts that are coming to you are born from the accuser of the brethren. And that is Satan, and we don't want to be on his team. So you need to learn, I want to encourage you to be sensitive, to recognize where those thoughts are coming from. Because those accusatory thoughts are coming as a weapon to destroy. And so you don't want to take those thoughts. Those thoughts are coming as unfounded accusations. And while some of them may have some truth to them, you don't really know if they do if you don't have a conversation and find out.
He's such a distorter.
Right.
He will cause you to misinterpret things. He'll assign a wrong motive to somebody's heart.
Right.
He just gets you to see things or take something that maybe was a mistake or maybe even they did do something wrong. But it just drive it to the nth degree and accuse the person of having tried, and convicted in your mind where you think they're worthless or they're evil. But love thinks no evil.
Yeah. And if the body of Christ around the world could just learn this truth too, it would help us all, and we get so much further for the Lord, and His kingdom would be so quickly expanded if we learn to take those thoughts captive that the enemy is throwing our way. And instead of listening to those, believe the best. Right? Believe the best and make allowances for the mistakes of others without accusing their hearts of being bad and having bad motives and being intentionally hurtful. But believing the best, believing they didn't mean to hurt anybody. How about doing that? How about believing that instead of what the enemy's trying to bring? So don't listen to the accuser of the brethren, but walk in love and believe the best. And if you have a thing that you need to question and you need to find out about, have a grown-up, loving conversation and find out if they did mean to hurt you. Maybe give them room to apologize and room to wipe the slate clean, and so that you can go on together.
In the midst of that, use those expressions we talked about, those I statements rather than you statements, those accusatory things. When you did this, I feel this way. I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know. I'm not saying I'm right in feeling this way, but I feel this way. See, and there you're taking ownership of your feelings. You're taking responsibility. You're not accusing. And we'll talk about these things more because these have been, I'm telling you, these have been game changers for us to really learn how to communicate and build together to where you can get past some conflicts or some places where you just don't know how to go forward, and you make that game plan for going forward together. Man, it's a beautiful thing. I tell you, this lady's got some things to teach. She's been a wonderful wife for me. So,
thanks, honey.
I mean, just the things that
grown together, and God's taught us some things, and we're just trying to share with you so that you can be more successful in your marriage, and that you don't, fall into some of the pitfalls that we've dug our way out of from time to time. And we just want to help you. We love you, and we just bless you and pray that you have stronger marriages and overall relationships in your life because you took the time to sow into them tonight.
So we usually have a tip for you here before we go. I guess my tip for you tonight is Gremlins.
That's a good tip.
That's a good tip. Hey, we love y'all. Have a great night, and thanks for joining us, and we'll see you next week.
See you again next week.
For better.
Yes.